Welcome back at WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are telling some stories here that we were in the middle of. We needed to take a break. We were promoting an event this weekend with our friends Rebecca and everybody at the American Visionary Arts Museum and AVAM, and I'm going to pull the website up for everybody watching and seeing the sunshine behind me. Daryl Davis is our guest, storied musician, local musician, and fighter of hatred and promoter of love. And that's what this is about. And getting into part two of the story. Don, do you want to pick this up where we left off here? Do you want to let Daryl
I
do
did.
this?
When we wrapped up segment one, Daryl, you were, and again, we can't talk about all 200 robes that you own. Obviously, you may get into that in the virtual session. But when you mentioned that you have the robe and a police uniform from a Baltimore City police officer, our listeners would kill us if we didn't follow up with the question. Say, tell us about that encounter and how that took place.
We've been doing a lot with the books and obviously with the Gun Trace Task Force, Daryl, which I'm sure you're probably very familiar with. You know what's going on here, consent decrees, Freddie, all of that.
Right.
That's a territory we live in on a daily basis. So when we hear about corruption in the police, it makes our skin crawl. But the level of the type of people that were involved with that association, right?
Absolutely. Well, the guy's name was Robert White, Bob White. And for those people who are your listeners who grew up in Baltimore, a long time, older people, they may remember an incident. This guy was arrested and charged with conspiring to bomb the synagogue up on Liberty Road in Baltimore. And he went to prison for 4 years for that. He was a Baltimore City police officer. And at the same time, he was the Grand Dragon of Maryland for the Ku Klux Klan. And then he continued running the Klan from within the prison through his guy on the outside. And when he got out after his 4-year sentence, he took over the Klan again. And then he got in trouble again, assault with intent to murder 2 black men with a shotgun over in Woodlawn. And he went to prison for 3 years. So anyway, the cops knew about it. They turned a blind eye to his activity, but because he was bringing so much embarrassment to the department, they had to let him go. But there were others on the force. He and I became very, very good friends, and it's because of me that he decided to leave the Klan behind, and he gave me his police uniform and his robe and hood, because I go around and lecture about this kind of stuff.
But Daryl, that's where I have to dig a little more, because I'm fascinated. I love the pure Nestor knows that I'm on this thing about we have to be better. It's almost like a ringing in my ears that we have to be better. You say he and I became good friends. Again, right. I hear our listeners saying, Daryl, what do you mean?
How do you go from there to,
right.
Listen, I'm 52, right? And after all of this Trumpism and all this stuff, I've discovered I don't need to be friends with everybody. You know what I mean? I don't need to change minds. You're clearly in a very different place, right?
And how do you become friends? That's the question.
A missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. Not everybody's going to change. I know that. We all know that. But if somebody of that attitude is willing to sit down and have a conversation, and you are willing to sit there and listen, there's an opportunity to plant a seed. Listen, out of the 195 countries in our world today, between my travels as a child with my parents and my travels today as a professional musician, I have been to 57 countries on 6 continents. I have performed in 49 of our 50 states. So all of that is to say that I have been exposed to a multitude of skin colors, ethnicities, religions, cultures, persuasions, ideologies, beliefs, and all of that has impacted who I am today. And I can tell you something, no matter how far I go from our country, my country, the United States, whether it's right next door to Canada or Mexico or halfway around the world, and no matter how many people that I meet who don't look like me, speak like me, practice like me, etc., worship like me, when I get home, I conclude one thing. We all are human beings. And as such, we all want the basic same 5 things in our lives. We all want to be loved. We want to be respected. We want to be heard. We want to be treated fairly. And we want the same thing for our family as anybody else wants for their family. And if we're willing to employ those 5 values in whatever society and culture we may find ourselves in with which we're unfamiliar, I guarantee our navigation will be much more positive and much more smooth. And that's why I'm so excited about Rebecca Hoffberger and the American Visionary Arts Museum. I mean, this lady is truly the definition of a visionary. She encompasses everything art and then some.
She's a force of nature. Is she not, Daryl?
She is. And she
I
brings
want
it
to pull
all
up what's
together.
going on here this weekend for everybody watching out on the pod. The Logan Visionary Conference, Bigger Love. It's AVAM's annual and free conference of international experts, including Daryl, focusing on the transformational power of love for the earth, each other, oneself, and as applied to equitable economic systems. It begins at 1 p.m. It's about an hour and a half online on Sunday. We always try to bring people together, Daryl. I know you're a musician and talking about bringing people together. Hazel Henderson, Wayne Jonas, Stavros Lambrinidis. I hope I get that right. All joining everyone. There's an RSVP. You can find the website. It's at avam.org. Just click on the event there. And I'm trying to share that out with everybody so everybody can see that. And we'll put a message out as well. I wore my love shirt there. How's that? I'm such a music guy, right? We've talked so much about bringing people together. And I've done sports traditionally the last 30 years here in Baltimore. I've done Ravens and Orioles. It's an opening day week and the Masters and the hoops and all this stuff, draft, all that happening. I miss music more than I miss sports, as like having a beer at Merriweather is going to make me whole again. But there's something so uniquely international about music, and it's a language unto itself, right?
It transcends all barriers,
speak, right?
It transcends all barriers. And trust me, I would much rather be on stage playing rock and roll and looking out the dance floor and seeing people dance to my music than being at a Klan rally watching people march around a burning cross yelling white power.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of that.
I can't imagine. And I still want you to take us on this journey because there's so many questions, but I want to go back to
It's a
Bob.
shame he doesn't drink. I want to drink beer with him. We have cranberry.
I'll have a cranberry juice with you, man.
Okay, all right, man. I want to go drinking something with you, man.
I want to go back to Bob White because because I think he may sort of be a synopsis for many of your stories. So you and Bob, let me just refresh your memory again, how you meet, but I really want you to be specific about how the friendship evolves to the point where he says to you, probably much more complicated than this, you know what, Daryl? I'm out. Here's my robe. I'm done.
Yeah.
I need you to tell me how that
evolves.
Walk us through that. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I can composite. Bob was vehemently racist, violent, and anti-Semitic. The whole world's problems were based on blacks and Jews. Get rid of them, the world will be at peace. Everything will be good. That was his attitude. And so I would write him letters while he was in prison, for his last crime, which was assault with intent to murder these 2 black guys over there off Security Boulevard in Woodlawn. And he'd write me back. I told him I wanted to interview him. Now, I did not tell him that I was black. And so we're writing back and forth. And he said, so he wrote me all this stuff about, the problem with blacks, problem with Jews, et cetera. And he sent me a Christmas card that he designed while he was in prison. And then in January, he writes me and tells me, we've been pen pals now for a while. Why is it that you've not told me you're black? He sent some of his Klan people on the outside to check me out, and word got back to him. So now he's all upset. So I wrote him back and said, hey, man, I don't walk around saying that I'm black. What difference does it make? You said you're going to interview with me. If you're going to tell me the truth, does the truth change because you're talking to a black guy? No, So he wrote me back and said, okay, that's fine. Let's just, have all our cards turned face up on the table. I said, fine. I said, but, I just don't walk around saying I'm black. So anyway, he got out and he told me to send him my phone number. He would call me and after a month of his being out, because he'd lost everything. His wife ran off with somebody. He lost his home, lost everything. So he wanted to, get his clan back together and get established, get his roots planted. So he called me after a month, and we arranged to get together and meet. And so,
did he know of you as an activist at that? What's
no, I wasn't an
motivation to get
activist
together with
at that time.
Okay.
I was a musician who was writing a book. That's all I was.
On the Klan or no?
On the Klan, yeah, on the
Okay.
Klan. And people knew me in the music world, but not how they know me now.
What, is this turn of the century?
No, this was about 1990, 93, 94,
okay,
maybe.
A decade after your first Frederick incident. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You're a decade into this. Okay.
Is the book still in print?
No, the book is out of print now. It's called Clandestine Relationships. Clandestine spelled with a K. But now I've written a second book, which is going to be pitched to the publishers very shortly. My agent just got it. And it's called The Klan Whisperer. And that will have everything from the first book, plus updates and new stories.
To go along with the documentary that's called Accidental Courtesy, correct?
Exactly.
Well, bring this whole thing full circle, the love part of what's going on here and how people get reached through this. And I really want to give a shout out, Don, for your sister and giving a TED talk, last week as well. We're going to bring her back in. But we've tried to have these deeper conversations during this time where we've all been sort of locked down. And I mean, your work through now going on 4 decades of work doing this, right? That you get called upon to come to conferences like this. I would think a lot of the people in the audience are not Klan members at this point, right? They're people trying to find some sort of center of gravity in all of this
believe it or
mess,
not,
right?
I do get Klan members and neo-Nazis in my audiences from time to time, and then they will email me afterwards. Some will even come up and talk to me, after the thing is over and tell me, their affiliation. But they'll usually email me afterwards. There'll be people who will cuss me out, and then there'll be those who say I made some sense. I've even received, believe it or not, Klan robes in the mail.
Wow. Well, take us to that moment. Again, I'm focused on Bob White. Bob is in my brain. So yeah, Bob says, how come I don't know you're black? We're going to continue to talk. And how long does it take? How long does this relationship take before Bob says, I'm out?
In Bob's case, it took several years. Others, it may take, a few months, maybe take a year, something like that. It depends upon, what they have invested in it, that kind of thing. And they join for different reasons. I was
going to ask you, do you always find the same person? I tend to think, No,
not the same person. Listen, a Klansman or Klanswoman is not stamped out of a standard cookie cutter. They come from they come from all different walks of life, all different educational backgrounds, from the 3rd grade dropout, that you see throwing chairs on Jerry Springer or Geraldo, all the way to President of the United States. All right, President Warren G. Harding was sworn into the Ku Klux Klan in the green room of the White House. Harry Truman, before he became president, joined the Klan for a very short time. He didn't like it, he got out. Supreme Court Justice Hugo Black was in the Klan when he got the appointment to sit on the Supreme Court. He had to leave the Klan in order to be a Supreme Court justice. Senator Robert Byrd, who just died a few years ago, right? Oldest living senator from West Virginia. He was a Klansman back in the 1940s in West Virginia. He was known as a Grand Kleagle. Kleagle means recruiter. So Grand means state. So he was the state recruiter for the Klan in West Virginia. So they go from all different educational backgrounds, all different vocations, But here's the thing. Our country can only become one of 2 things. 1, it can become that which we sit back and watch it become, or 2, it can become that which we stand up and make it become. So as Americans, we have to ask ourselves the question, do I want to sit back and see what my country becomes, or do I want to stand up and make my country become what I want to see? So I've chosen the latter, that's all.
We are with Daryl Davis, renowned musician, Klan, taking on the Klan through activism, incredible documentary, Accidental Courtesy, part of a big conference coming up at the American Visionary Arts Museum. Daryl, one of my thoughts when I was doing a little research for this segment was this guy has now begun to have an impact. We're up to a couple of hundred Klansmen that he's impacted enough that they've turned in their robes. I'm trying to think how the grand poobahs, so to speak, in Klans world today, who now begin to know about this guy, Daryl Davis, and he's making inroads. Are you afraid of them? Do they threaten
No,
you?
some of them do threaten me, but no, I'm not afraid of them. You know, I mean, they're human beings like anybody else. And the thing, you know, that's what people don't understand. I would rather see a person in a robe and hood and know what they stand for and where they're coming from than see somebody with a badge and a gun and a uniform that I don't know where he's coming from. I know where he's supposed to be coming from. You know, and I'm not painting a broad brush across the police. You know, my father, before he was in the Foreign Service, he was one of the first Black Secret Service agents in this country. So he was in law enforcement. So I have a high regard for law enforcement. But, you know, people hide behind different uniforms or clothing, you know, a sheep in wolf's clothing, right? Or wolf in sheep's clothing, rather. So, you know, I know they don't make me afraid. I do realize that I do put myself in some dangerous situations sometime. And there have been occasions in which, you know, I've had to get violent in order to protect myself. But those have been few and far between, fortunately.
Yeah, we talk about ignorance being at
the root.
At the root of all of this. And Don was my high school guidance counselor, so Don's been through all the phases of my life with me. And I think maybe 15 years ago, Don and I had a conversation long before we started doing this together about people with passports. That if you have a passport and you've traveled a little bit, and I realize 85%, it's a large number of Americans do not hold
have
a
passports.
Do not have a passport. So there's no way they can know what the streets of Tokyo or the streets of Caracas or the streets of Paris or any of these places. And I've traveled around the world as well. I'm 52 now, and I never thought I would go to Asia or have any interest. I've been to Asia 3 times now. I love, you know, I've learned to eat with chopsticks, even though I'm missing a finger. For you piano players out there, but you know, for me, the more I travel and the more I read about people who travel, the ignorance melts away. You know, I told you I was from Dundalk in 1983.
You will appreciate this, Nestor. My favorite quote of all time is by Mark Twain, and it's called the travel quote. And Mark Twain said, "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime."
Nestor, there's another one for you.
And I tell you what, Daryl, this is not a bad place to vegetate, right? I mean, you're a local guy, right? You've spent a large segment of your life here, right? You live in Silver Spring.
A good portion, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we got a lot to offer here. I mean, we got crabs. We have crabs.
But you know what? I mean,
you eat crab cakes, Daryl?
Yeah, I love it, man. Invite me over. I'm there.
All right. There. One more, Don. Add him to the crab. You're going to be Moeller. You don't know this. You're going to be the executive producer of the Crab Cake Connoisseur Club on Fridays.
Oh, my goodness.
And what we're going to do is all these interesting people we meet, we're going to invite them for crab cake. I'm going to drink beer. Yeah, I got some cranberry juice here for you. All right. So,
Daryl, where in Silver Spring, where's your favorite crab cake? If you're going out today and you're going to go get your favorite. It doesn't have to be in
Silver Spring.
Oh, nobody lives down
Probably Annapolis or Baltimore.
Where would you go?
Where would you go, though? Where would you take
Probably Annapolis or Baltimore.
All right.
What place?
Not a particular establishment?
Yeah, there's a place up in Annapolis. It begins with an N, as in Nancy, and I can't remember the name of it.
All right, we're going to track that down.
I'm going to circle that back because we're asking people if somebody, you know, if Bono was coming to town, if Elvis came back, if Jerry Lee, and you were taking them for a crab cake and you picked them up at BWI, where would you take them? So that's going to be the question I ask everyone locally.
Daryl, update us on your music. What's happening with your music?
Well, music is beginning to come back. You know, venues are starting to open up. Hopefully people will, you know, not go crazy and spike everything and put us back to ground zero again. But it's beginning to come back. I just played a big show at the Birchmere in Alexandria 2 weeks ago. I have a few things on the books, but I played piano for Chuck Berry for 32 years on and off. So saw a lot of rock and roll,
All right. Now, wait a minute now. Again, we try to play listener here. Tell folks about Chuck Berry. Who was he? What kind of guy was he? What was he like to be around?
Well, there's
a
Springsteen story about the Ritchie
I was
Coliseum.
there. I was there.
Well,
I was
tell us.
there.
Okay, so
Chuck
instead of me telling the lore of that story.
Okay, I was there.
Because Springsteen loves to tell that story.
Yeah, I witnessed it. I was standing right there when it happened.
All right, set it up because we got people out
all right, so
there.
I was a teenager, and Chuck was my idol. And he was coming to Coalfield House, University of Maryland, and it was Jerry Lee Lewis and Chuck Berry. Those were the ticket, and so I wanted to meet Chuck, and I got a ride out to Coalfield House in the middle of the day because I knew he would probably come there for the sound check or whatever and all that kind of thing. And the promoter's job was always to supply a band for Chuck Berry. Chuck did not travel with the band anymore. He arrived, you give him the band, you give him the amplifiers, and he plays. So anyway, I went up there early. I got there, maybe a little bit after noon or something. And they were like bringing in lights and setting up speakers. And I just walked in. There was no security at that point in time. And so I just, I hid for a little while. I was a kid. And then after everything got settled down, I came out. I milled over there where the band was setting up. And the band was like really, really nervous because they never worked with Chuck before. And so, for whatever reason, they were thinking that Chuck was going to be there like around 2 p.m. or something because that's what time their sound check was. So then they would run over some songs with him or whatever, have like a little mini rehearsal. Well, it got closer and closer to 2 p.m. and there was no Chuck Berry. And so they were like super nervous. So at 2 p.m. they got on stage and they did their sound check. They ran through Nadine and Johnny B. Good and all that stuff. And they sounded great. And so 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, no Chuck Berry. And back then, there were no cell phones, right? And this is like 1972, April 1972. And the promoter was getting a little nervous because you couldn't reach anybody, no cell phones. So anyway, around, I don't know, 7:30 or so, Jerry Lee Lewis comes in. And I got to meet him as he came through. And he went to his dressing room and still no Chuck Berry. Well, Jerry Lee goes on, does his thing. And so Chuck goes on, it's supposed to be like, 9 o'clock or something. Chuck walks in about 8:45, right? And he came in through the backstage door and he walked right past me. I just froze. Like, oh my God, there is my idol. And I didn't even say hello or nothing. I just froze. He walked past me with nothing in his hands and no guitar, nothing. And he talked to a person that was standing, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 feet from me. And the guy pointed down the hall to a door. And so Chuck went down there to that door. At first I thought, maybe he was going to the bathroom or something, but it was a promoter's office. So what he was doing was he was going down there to get his money. So he goes down to this guy's office, goes in there. A few minutes later, he comes out, he walks past me again, goes out the backstage door and then to the parking lot, and then comes back in with his guitar. So he doesn't bring his guitar in until he has his money. That's how it worked back then. And so then I figured, okay, well, he's gonna go over there where the band is. So I went over there and stood near the band, and sure enough, that's where he came. He puts his guitar down, pulls it out, begins tuning it. And so this guy walks up, and I said hello to the band, but I didn't know any of them. I didn't know their names and that. So the leader walks up and says, "Hi, Mr. Berry. My name is Bruce Springsteen. We're going to be your band tonight. Blah blah blah." And so Chuck shakes everybody's hand, including mine. And then Bruce says to him, "Yeah, we thought you were going to be here for the sound check." And Chuck says, "No." And then he says, "Well, we went over your songs. Do you have a do you know what you're going to play tonight?" And Chuck says, "I think I'll play some Chuck Berry." and with that, he walked on stage, plugged in, and man, he doesn't tell you what key he's in. He doesn't tell you what the song is. He just goes ba da 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 da, and the band just kicked in. I mean, they were fantastic. They were absolutely
So
fantastic.
now we got little Daryl Davis, who's hanging around a sound check, who ends up playing with Chuck Berry for 32
Yeah.
years. Come on, fill in that blank.
Well, you know,
How's that
I
happen?
love Chuck Berry. I loved Elvis Presley. You know, I got to meet many of my idols, including Elvis and Chuck and Jerry Lee and Little Richard, Fats Domino, all those people, and I got to work with a bunch of them. So
Fats was my man. Now, come on.
Who?
Fats
Oh yeah,
Domino. Come
Fats
on.
was fantastic, man. And so
I
anyway,
lost my thrill.
yeah,
He found his thrill. He's got the words wrong. I'm sorry. Don't let Don start singing around here, man. It'd be a mess.
So Chuck
Richie
Chuck was going to perform at the Pier 6 Pavilion in Baltimore, and he had performed, I guess, the previous year or 2 years prior, up in Towson or somewhere, and the band was terrible. You know, they couldn't follow him. They didn't, you know, they weren't watching him. He kicked half the band off the stage because, you know, they weren't paying attention to his cues. So I called the promoter and I said, listen, you got to supply Chuck with a band. He says, yeah. And I said, well, you need to hire me. I said, I know Chuck's, I know Chuck's music. I said, and I said, you know what happened in Baltimore, you know, a couple of years back or whatever. And I said, I know all his nuances. It's not a question of just playing the song like, you know, like his greatest hits in 1958.
He's gonna like me.
Yeah, exactly. I know what he does. I know his body language. I know all that stuff, and that's what it takes to play with Chuck Berry. So the guy was convinced that I knew what I was talking about, and so he hired me, and I put together the band to back him up, and we played at Pier 6 Pavilion. And from that point on, Chuck, you know, was telling his agent, you know, whenever I play in that area, you tell the promoter to hire, you know, this Daryl Davis. And then Chuck began calling me, you know, his agent began calling me, promoters began calling me, and then Chuck began calling me. And he and I became
I'm going to call you now and get a crab cake. How about
then,
that?
Yeah, so then we began playing up and down the East Coast, sometimes in the Midwest. And, you know, I'd go to St. Louis and see him. I, you know, stayed at his house. He's been to my house here in Silver Spring.
What kind of guy? What kind of guy is he?
Chuck
Daryl?
Berry was a genius. Okay, a lot of people don't understand Chuck Berry. You know, they attribute all kinds of things to him that, you know, they're simply not true. A genius is wired a little differently than the average person. The way they perceive things, the way they think about things is different.
I've been telling people that 52 years. They don't believe it. You know what I mean?
So, you know, listen, Chuck Berry, a lot of us can say, hey, you know, I played the guitar or I played the piano, I wrote a song. A lot of us can say that. But how many people can say, I invented a genre of music?
Well, I was going to ask you about that, Daryl, and I know we're coming up on the clock. You've been very gracious with your time. Well, people who like music like Nestor, and I don't know nearly as much as Nestor, but I love music. But one of the themes that's always intrigued me is that Chuck Berry never got the credit for being the inventor of rock and roll that he should have. Was Chuck Berry aware of the fact that he really was the father of this new sound and didn't get the credit that the Bill Haley and the Comets or the Elvises got? Was he, Buddy Holly's, you name, was he aware of that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But Chuck was a very humble person. And, you know, and, you know, he would never take, you know, credit. He knows what he did. And he knows his influence. You know, we wouldn't have the Stones, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Ted Nugent, you know, anybody who plays rock music, all of their DNA goes back to Chuck Berry. You know, he was well aware of that, but he wanted to make sure, you know, that if you took something from him and used it, you better give credit and pay those royalties, or he will sue you. He sued the Beach Boys and won. He sued the Beatles and won. The Beach Boys, their biggest hit was Surfing USA. Mm-hmm. Surfing USA is the same song, exact same song as Sweet Little 16, just different words. Now, the Beach Boys did not do that maliciously. They did it because they loved Chuck Berry. But you can't take somebody's copyrighted material and rework the words and call it your own, you know?
Sort of the My Sweet Lord thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Precisely. So Chuck sued, and now when Surfing USA first came out, it said Brian Wilson. Now it says, you know, Berry, you know, Chuck Berry.
How about that?
The Beatles, the first line of their song "Come Together" is "Here come old flat top, he be moving up slowly." Right? That comes out of a Chuck Berry song called "You Can't Catch Me" from 1956. It was the sequel to Maybelline.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So Nestor, what man? Nestor,
2 crab cakes.
I mean, double crab cake. All right. Well, I know we got to run, but
That's double crab cake.
Does the search for Klansmen and Klanswomen continue? For
Yes,
Daryl
absolutely.
Davis?
I talk with him on a daily basis, man. I deal with the Proud Boys, the alt-right, the neo-Nazis, the Klan, whoever.
Are the Proud Boys just the Klan by a different name, Daryl? As you talk to them?
No, they have similar ideologies, but no, not exactly. They're an evolution thereof.
Well,
Are they?
And they have some mixed people in there. When I say mixed, I mean mixed race people in there, but they still lean towards white supremacy.
Yeah, I apologize for all. I mean, I just have question after question. Is there anything in the DNA of these folks? And I think Nestor alluded to this earlier. Is there anything after all these years in the DNA of these folks that sort of ties them together, that when you're looking at this puzzle, because you're a person that looks at human nature, is there something in their DNA that ties them together?
Yes, I'll tell you very briefly, is this. These people are fearing their erasure, the erasing of their identity. When I was a kid, when you were a kid, white people in this country were like 84, 86%. Black people were 12%. We still are 12%, almost 13%. So we really haven't grown. Native Americans were 1% when we were kids. They're still 1%. Hispanic people were almost 2%. Now Hispanic people are 17 point something percent.
That's my people.
Yeah, Asian people, when I was a kid, were like around 3%. Now they're 6%. All right. So today, white people, if you Google the US Census Bureau, white people in this country today are 59%. It is well predicted that in the year 2042, which is 21 years from now, for the first time in history, this country will be 50-50, 50% white, 50% non-white. And while there is a vast number of white people who accept that and say, hey, I got no problem with that. That's evolution, no big deal. There is a segment of the population that is freaking out about that. They don't want to see that happen. They want to remain on top. And that's why you're seeing all this. We're going to take our country back. We're going to build our wall. We're going to make America great again. We're going to send those people back to where they came from, and on and on. Those people are freaking out. And that's why you have this proliferation of all these other groups. When I first started this almost 40 years ago, it was just the Klan, white power skinheads, and some neo-Nazis. Now you got the Klan, white power skinheads, neo-Nazis, the alt-right, the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, the 3%ers, the Oath Keepers, on and on and on. That's what they have in common.
And everybody else who was climbing the Capitol back on January 6th. Precisely. Okay, because they're fearing that erasure. Their identity is being erased through miscegenation, through immigration, etc. And what they tell me is, Daryl, I don't want my grandkids to be brown. They call it the browning of America. And you know the term white flight.
Yes.
Okay. Well, guess what? White flight barely exists anymore because the color of the landscape has changed so much. Anywhere you go, there's already somebody there who doesn't look like you. And
Daryl, wasn't that the strange, man, how everything ties together? It was one of the things that really backfired, right, on the Celebrity Apprentice president when he began to warn people that black and brown people may be coming to the suburbs, and the soccer moms looked around and they just had a cart full of little black and brown kids who, serving cupcakes at the game. They were like, which black and brown people?
Right.
My neighbors are black and brown people. So that whole line of attack sort of.
The guy was completely clueless, man. He's clueless.
Like what black and brown people are we talking about? Nestor, before we get out of here, where can people get more Daryl Davis this weekend?
Well, I'll tell you what, the Logan Visionary Conference is going on. It's online. It's happening on Sunday at 1 p.m. for an hour and a half. You go to avam.org. Give Rebecca our best down there. Bigger love, hence the bigger love. And I've got more love. I got love under here, too, for El Guapo and the Mexican food over there on Frederick Road as well as our friends at Faithley's. I'm doing a crab cake tour. And it's going to be built around people like you, Daryl Davis. So I'm
All right.
hoping
Well, listen,
wherever we do it, there's got to be a piano in the corner wherever we do it, so we
will do it.
We can make.
Well,
I
I've got
want to come
another
here.
I've got
I
to
want to hear
jump.
some music. Daryl, Nestor and I are coming out. You let us know where you're going to play. We're
I'll
gonna
sing
come
some
hear
fats
music.
right away, man.
All right,
Right
we
away.
will
Let's
do
go.
it. I promise you, we will do it.
I wanna walk you home.
Looking for looking
All right.
for love in
You guys
all
take
the
good
wrong
care.
places.
Look so good to me. Ooh, all right, there we
Daryl
go. There we
Davis,
go.
everybody.
Daryl Davis, he's better than that, by the way. Avan, big shout out to everybody. I can't wait to get back over there for some more events, some breakfasts, some lunches, some dinners, all the incredible events that we've done over there, including the Kidney Foundation as well, with their annual events. We get back over there and do that. On behalf of Don Moeller, former Baltimore County executive, musician, advocate, and great conversationalist, crab cake, double crab cake.
All right, we got it.
Daryl
Take
Davis.
good care, guys. Thank you all very
Thank you,
much.
Daryl.
We are
Thank you.
WNST.net and Baltimore Positive.